What did I have to do as a child to be loved, to be safe, to be accepted, to avoid punishment and shame? So everyone got that? What did I have to do as a child to be shown? In other words, what did I have to do as a child to earn love, acceptance, safety, belonging? Now, I say earn in parentheses, in quotation marks, because none of these things should have had to be earned. These should have been unconditional. Now, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean we as parents are meant to accept any behavior from our child. That's not what it means. It means that while we correct behavior, we do not withhold love. Does that make sense? And this is something that a lot of us are not familiar with because we never had it modeled. Most of us dealt with very conditional types of love and acceptance. And so when we talk about what is the essential need of a child to be healthy, and those needs are that they don't have to earn love, that they don't have to earn acceptance, that they don't have to earn safety, that these things are given, these things are non-negotiables. And so when we ask this question, what did I have to do in childhood to earn love, to earn acceptance, to earn affection, to earn attention, to earn safety, to stay safe? The answer to that question will explain all of human behavior as adults. So for example, for some people, the answer to that question is, as a child, I had to keep everyone happy in order to earn love, safety, acceptance, belonging. And so that individual, you will see as an adult, being a people pleaser. A person who now, decades later, continues to suppress their own needs, suppress their own thoughts, opinions, ideas, wants, in order to please and appease the people around them. For some people, the answer to this question was, I had to take care of others. I was the caretaker. And so now that person continues in adulthood to think that their worth, now this is about self-worth now, because whatever you had to do as a child to earn love, it became your self-worth. And so this person now grows up and believes that their worth is based on how well they can take care of others, not how well they can take care of themselves. No, in fact, they neglect themselves. This is called self-abandonment. They neglect themselves because they believe that their worth is actually related to how well they can take care of others. Now, this might seem like, well, this is a good thing, isn't it, Yasmin? I'm going to tell you something very interesting. There has been research, in specific out of Stanford, that has shown that there is a link between the suppression of healthy emotion and autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease. And so it is not that we are just altruistic. It's something harmless to suppress and to take on this role of my self-worth is based on whether or not others are pleased, whether or not I have taken care of others. Now, it is rewardable to be a carer for others, right? This is a beautiful thing. But I'm not talking about just taking care of others. I am talking about self-abandonment. And self-abandonment is linked to autoimmune disease. And so there is a physical cost. There is a health-related cost. For some people, the answer to this question, what did I have to do to earn love, acceptance, safety, belonging? The answer is, I had to achieve. It was my achievements. It was performance. How are you doing on your exams? Are you bringing in the money? What can you show What can you achieve? What can you produce? And so these people will grow up and become what? Workaholics. This is where it came from. It has a very deep need that is underneath. I'm not just talking about people who work hard. I'm talking about something else. I am talking about a person who has linked their self-worth with how they do in their career. They have linked their self-worth with how much money they make, with how successful they are. And that was programmed early in childhood. Because early in childhood, they were taught, you will get more love when you succeed. Simple as that. You will be more accepted. You will gain belonging the more you achieve. The more grades you bring in and the more money you bring in. And so this is something literally wired into their nervous system. And that is why they are workaholics. That is why they will sacrifice even family. There's a deep reason for this. They will sacrifice even family relationships in order to climb the corporate ladder, in order to climb the career ladder, in order to be successful, in order to get the promotion, in order to make more money. It's a very deep psychological reason. And that is because in childhood, this is how love was given. And there is also the fear of rejection if you do not perform. There is the fear of rejection if you do not succeed, if you do not achieve. Understand? Just like there is the fear of rejection for those who, if you don't keep people happy, if you aren't a caretaker. For some people, the answer to this question is, I had to be the savior of the family. I had to be the problem solver. And so, what do? How many of you would consider yourself a problem solver? All right. The interesting thing about problem solvers is that in any given situation, it's funny. In any given situation, when you scan any given situation, what are you always looking for? Problems. Thank you, sis. You're always looking for problems. Why? Well, so you can solve them. Isn't that your job? Now, what do you think that does to the nervous system of that person? Think about it. This dunya will never give you a shortage of problems. That's something it will always provide. You will never run out of possible problems. Why? Because we aren't in Jannah. And so if you're scanning, if your search terms are problems to look for, you will always find them. And you'll never run out. And guess what will also happen? You will also always feel anxious. You will not be able to relax. You will not be able to sleep at night. Why? Because you are actually scanning all the time, looking for problems, thinking that if I can just find the problem ahead of time and I can solve it, I can stay safe. And my family can stay safe. This is a survival mechanism. You're looking for the problems so that you can solve them so that you can stay safe. But the problems never finish. And so what you're actually doing is you're surrounding yourself with nothing but problems. And this is the interesting thing about human psychology, is that whatever you focus on grows. Whatever you focus on grows. So now you can imagine, if you're always focused on problems, not only do they not run out, but they grow. I give this example. You walk into a garden and you've got these beautiful roses and daisies and trees and birds, and it's just gorgeous. But you look past all that because you're looking for problems. And you look past all of that and you see an ant. There's an ant on the ground. And you say, I see an ant. I don't like ants. Ants are a problem. So now what you do is, you don't see the flowers anymore. You don't see the birds anymore. You don't see the trees anymore. Now you are hyper-fixated on the ant. And now all you do is talk about the ant. All you think about is the ant. All you read about is the ant. All you complain about is the ant. Are you with me? Sounding familiar? And now what happens to the ant? It turns into a lion simply by your focus on it, by your fixation on it. What you focus on grows. And so the fact that you have fixated on the ant, which was once just an ant, you have done two things at the same time. One is that you no longer see the blessings. You no longer see the gifts. You no longer see the ease. You no longer see the birds or the flowers because you have hyper-focused on the ant, the problem in this current situation, because you're always going to look for something. There's always going to be something. You're never going to run out of the ants. You know what I'm saying? We're not in Jannah. And so what happens now is not only have you deprived yourself of the blessings, but you now are dealing with, you now have a lion on your hands because it's grown in its size in your own perception. Does that make sense? And now the ant is no longer its proper perspective size. It now looks like a lion that is like an all-encompassing. And I say this because, it's one thing to know where it comes from. There is a root cause. There is a reason why you do this. And it is because you're trying to keep yourself safe. You're trying to keep your family safe. And you think that if you can just find all the possible ways that things can go wrong, and then overthinkers in the room? Do you want to know what's very interesting about overthinking? Overthinking is underfeeling. Whoa, mind blown. When I found that out, it was like the emoticon, mind blown. Overthinking is underfeeling. What does it mean? It means I don't want to feel the negative emotions, and so I look for a way to escape through overthinking. I don't want to feel the uncomfortable sensation of fear. I don't want to feel the uncomfortable sensation of disappointment. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to overthink as a way to avoid feeling. And I'm also, and this is a big one, I am trying to get a sense of control. You know what this all comes down to, and this is very deep. It all comes down to an intolerance for something called uncertainty. Uncertainty intolerance is the root cause of so many of our dysfunctional behaviors. And this is very interesting because psychology has found this. But see, there is only one antidote to this. See, life is full of uncertainty, isn't it? Can you be certain what's going to happen tomorrow? Can you be certain what's going to happen 1 minute from now? Can you be certain what's going to happen a year from now? Can anyone get certainty of those things? No. But see, uncertainty is an inevitable part of dunya. You agree? If you have an intolerance to uncertainty, where did that come from? From a chaotic childhood. It comes from a childhood where there was unpredictability. It comes from a childhood where a parent was inconsistent or a parent was volatile. And so what happens is you learned in your nervous system that if I have uncertainty, I won't be safe. You've learned that uncertainty is unsafe. And so what you do as an adult is you try to remove any uncertainty as much as you can by controlling or trying to control everything. See, all of this is linked. All of this is linked. You try to control everything. You need to know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. You need to be in control at all points or you don't feel safe. And then you replay things in your mind as a way to get control. By the way, this is an illusion of control. We are not in control. Allah is in control. And the only true antidote to this is tawakkul. It is la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The Prophet ﷺ said that this statement, la hawla, that there is no change in state, wa la quwwa, and there is no strength or power, illa billah, except by Allah, that this statement is a cure for 99 ailments. And the least of them is stress. And you can see why. Because it is the understanding that I'm not the one in charge. I'm not the one in control. I don't bring about the outcome, Allah does. I'm not the one steering this ship, Allah is. I'm not the one holding the mountain and making sure it doesn't crush me or my family. Allah is. Do you understand? And this giving of the sense of control to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only way to cure these ailments.